do us a quick favor, guys. Hit the follow, subscribe button. Share this with someone who would benefit from it. And help us grow, as the more we grow, the better the episodes we'll get. Thanks, guys, for helping us. And let's get into the episode. Why do I want to be the best? And I think about when other people wake up and they're doing more than me, I will make sure that I'm always doing the most out of everyone. Now that's truly competitive. But when I think about competitiveness, I think about players getting angry on the field. I think about players getting frustrated with not winning. But that's not me. I never get frustrated at not winning. I never get frustrated on the field because of someone else. That's not what I do. Now, is that because I'm so competitive that stuff doesn't bother me? Right?
The Relentless series, taken by the SCULPTED Podcast.
The look away to Livingston. Jordan. Oh, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan. That's 13 consecutive field goals.
He never dunked on you. He never put you on the highlight.
What a performance. What an exit for number 24.
Helping you unleash relentless greatness from within.
Welcome to this episode of SCULPTED Podcast. In today's episode, we are going through Chapter 6 of Relentless, personal favorite, as you guys should know. And Chapter 6 is, you have a dark side that refuses to be taught to be good. So, I believe I've talked about the dark side a little bit before. And it's for me, a very ongoing process. I can't necessarily give too much personal anecdotes to it because I can't say I'm extremely experienced with it. Although I do feel like I have more experience with it now. When you go through my notes that I have, I don't know if it's in this chapter specifically, although I know in a lot of different notes that I've taken, it's definitely me trying to find that dark side. Now, I won't reveal to you what it is, although I can go through the process of finding it with you. So, the first thing I have here, he does what he feels, not what he's been taught. Impulse and instinct. I like those two things, impulse and instinct. Doesn't care about consequences or who he has to destroy in the process. A transformation into your alter ego, your dark side. Who your instincts drive you to be. Maybe a psychopath. You have to leave your baggage behind. It's the ability to it's the ability to voluntarily or involuntarily drop all the BS. Allow yourself to just do what you do. The most extraordinary level. No fear, just action. Born bad, taught to be good. So a few of my notes. By showing your dark side, it's more just not thinking about other things. It's just doing. So when you're in this state of just doing, you don't think about the consequences. So the dark side is neglecting the consequences, and it's just acting. So I've actually got the reference here, which I've referenced many times in this podcast. And this series, I believe, when Kobe refers to the gladiator sniffing the dirt, that switch. So, deep inside you, there's an undeniable force driving your actions. The part of you that refuses to be ordinary. The piece that stays raw and untamed. Not just instinct, but a killer instinct. The kind you keep in the dark, where you crave things you don't talk about. And you don't care how it comes across to others because you know this is who you are, and you wouldn't change if you could. It could definitely be a bad thing, right? The dark side is not necessarily a good thing. You think about tyrants. Their dark sides are the most known to us. Think about Adolf Hitler. Think about Stalin. Think about all of the famous dictators. Kim Jong-un. Their dark sides are known to us. Power, many different things, right? They say that athletes are very similar to serial killers because the dedication that they must have, the secrecy, all of these different things, they align with serial killers quite well. And it makes sense, right? The dark side. Thinking and acting without consequence. It's very important as an athlete to do that. And it's very important to do that as a serial killer. Now, that makes me sound like a bit of a serial killer. I'm not, thankfully. Don't plan on it. Much prefer the athlete kind of route for myself. And yeah, not really the tyrant one, although I do joke about that because I think that tyrants do have quite a similar kind of vision to people like myself. You know, people might say, in another life, I would be a tyrant or like a emperor or whatever it is, right? Makes sense. And I think cleaners can probably relate to that. Anyways, the real person inside stays the same. That's who you are. Everyone has a dark side. It's essential to link to get... It's the essential link to getting into the zone. Now, this is where I can't really say that the dark side for me translates to getting into the zone. I can't really link my dark side to that yet. Now, originally I couldn't even link my dark side. I didn't even know what my dark side was. So there's still progress there. Now, I wrote down here in pencil, so we know it's old, right? I don't know mine, but when I find out what it is, I'm keeping it to myself. No one else will hear about it or see it. It's simmering, not boiling. Nice little analogy there, Nick. I like that one. So that's why I'm not going to tell you what mine is. Don't worry. My dark side isn't a bad thing. It's more of a selfish thing. But when I act, I think without consequence. So, without exception, every single one has the dark side. All are driven by something deep and intense. I have a lot of notes on this page, you can see. Basically transcribed Relentless book. So, any field, no, that's not highlights. That's what I thought, not too many. They're not bad people. Ordinary isn't going to take you to the top. You're looking directly at his dark side. He knew the consequences before he did it, and he did it anyway. You want to keep on winning at everything. The satisfaction doesn't come from the risk. It comes from mastering it. I own this. Okay, going through a bit of notes. Pencil here. Don't agree with this yet. I'm sure I won't if it relates to my dark side. But I really don't know what it is. So there I'm still trying to work it out, right? You don't get to be the best at anything without blistering confidence and an impenetrable shell. You get there by taking huge risks that others won't take. The quote that I always say, if anyone was going to do it, it would be me. Now that comes from a lot of confidence. It's your dark side that drives its seductive finger into your back and whispers go. The dark side is your fuel. Anything that creates a private challenge and tests you to control it before it controls you, it's an addiction as powerful as your addiction to success. Good or bad. Although, so it's more of a reason to drive and fuel you than actually consume you. Okay, I have a few personal ones there that I won't go into, but it's my process of elimination that I've gone through. I've discussed old thoughts here, newer thoughts here, and then I've come to a more realization recently. You stuffed them away, you learned you shouldn't want them, couldn't have them, but instead you craved more until you got frustrated with hiding who you really were, admitted the truth to yourself, and finally did what you had always wanted to do. You can't be limited if you're going to be relentless. What you want versus what you know is right. The dark side can't be pinned. Kind of like me a little bit, I can't really pin it. Cleaner controls urges, not the other way around. Your self-control is what distinguishes you from everyone else. You stay at the office working late knowing you should be at home. You watch everyone else stumble over themselves trying to keep up with you, and you find the next thing you can win. The next and the next and the next, because being relentless is hunger that never subsides. As soon as a cleaner achieves success and the adrenaline rush proceeds, he needs more. Few notes? All personal. And a lot of it is that elimination process for myself. Working through it. I mean, every time that I've read the books, I've had a different answer, which is interesting. So I've also written that that's the competitiveness that I don't have yet. Now it's interesting because as I've written that, I would say, no, I do have that. And I've always thought that I don't have competitiveness. But then when I really dissected it, I thought about this and I thought, do I not have competitiveness, or is it that I'm so competitive I don't show it? So what I attribute that to be is that the level of competition that I work in is so high that the small competition doesn't even bother me. Now, I can't say that with full conviction, because I haven't been tested enough. But when I really do think about it, when I think about why do I want to be the best, and I think about when other people wake up and they're doing more than me, I will make sure that I'm always doing the most out of everyone. Now, that's truly competitive. But when I think about competitiveness, I think about players getting angry on the field. I think about players getting frustrated with not winning. But that's not me. I never get frustrated at not winning. I never get frustrated on the field because of someone else. That's not what I do. Now, is that because I'm so competitive that stuff doesn't bother me? Right? Mate, that's what I think it is. I think that I'm so competitive that only the big stuff, that's what gets me going. Now, I think there's probably a better way of saying that, but I would like to know if some people can relate to that. Now, I'm quickly going to go through a few more pages here to see. Okay. All right. So we've got a few more pages left. The ability to show up at the gym every day and do what no one else is willing to do, that comes from the dark side. I've got that. 100% I've got that. This path is usually determined at an early age. One way or another is going to be the best at something. Relentless in their desire to win at all costs. I'm not going to read that note. That could incriminate me. Actually, I'm going to read it because saying that probably is going to incriminate me more. I would say that, like, if I was in another area of work, then I would be the best at that as well. And I've said that before, how football chose me. I believe that football chose me, right? Anything that I do, I believe I can become the best at. So the next thing, the fire in your gut comes from the dark side. And the dark side has no place at the family dinner table. The dark side has nothing to do with what's happening at home. People try to blame it on that. It's about how they feel on the inside. The only time you can be 100% yourself is when you're connected to your dark side. They do what they have to, so they can ultimately do what they want to. They do what they have to, so they can ultimately do what they want to. You may not relate to that. That's my chair. It's broken. You may not relate to that, but the people who do will know exactly what that means. Okay. The next page, and I've wrote down from probably some of the first few notes. I don't agree with most of this stuff. Okay. All you think about is winning. You just want to stay in that zone where it's dark, cool, and it's just you and your thoughts. Watch a video of Tiger for a scandal. He'd walk onto that course as if it was built for him. It was suddenly pretty clear exactly what had put Tiger into the zone. Well, we all know what put Tiger into the zone if it was the scandal. So, what I've written is, now I wonder how that, of what put Tiger in the zone, translates to him and his dark side. So we know what Tiger's scandal was, right? How did that get him into the zone? How did that help him when he's not thinking without consequence? How did that get him into his zone? Now, I don't know. Maybe Tiger doesn't know. But was that his dark side? Maybe. I'm not in an educated enough position to say that was. Tim Grover is. But I can't say if that was or it wasn't. But I could definitely see, it's not a good dark side. But if that helped him, it helped him. I wanted to see him say nothing in public and show up ready to fight another day. You don't throw ice or anything else at Charles and expect to get away with it. He built his intimidating reputation of being a killer on the golf course. I didn't want to see him hanging his head. He didn't murder anyone. He stepped out on his life. It's between him and his family. Worried about losing endorsements? Go win something. They'll all come running back. Interesting. Impulse, instinct, thinking without consequence. And Tiger made quite a formal apology as well with that, which Tim Grover didn't really like. I went through all of this, and my game went up. You had no chance. That's what Tim Grover did like, I believe, if I'm recalling the situation right. Tiger went through all of that, all of the scandal, and he got better for it. Crazy. Very crazy. Tiger fell off. Watch this. I control it all. It doesn't control me. I own this. So he didn't fall off. He controls the situation. He's a cleaner. Now, I've written here, actually, does that make Tiger a closer? Now, what do I mean by this? And if they did, the game would have then be to prove they could still perform at the same level and not miss a step, unlike Tiger who fell off way of his game. Okay, that's a good point. Good job, Nick. So when it says Tiger fell off, does that make Tiger a closer? Well, what makes Tiger a cleaner is that it doesn't control him. He owns this, right? A closer, they are controlled by it. Cleaner controls it. Okay, watch no drinking for a month. And there was no drinking for a month. Challenge conquered. Where you say something, you do it. You don't let it control you, you control it. Not easy to do. How else are you going to test what you're capable of if you don't truly challenge your ability under every possible circumstance? I quite like that. Okay. Cleaner law, control your dark side, don't let it control you. Now, I wrote, Tiger and Kobe both originally let it control that, I believe, right? Kobe Bryant, I think he had a bit of a scandal. Tiger Woods definitely had a bit of a scandal. That's closer mentality. Now, the fact that it didn't happen again, cleaner mentality. Can you be decent at what you do with an alcohol problem? Probably. But you can't be great. Cleaners never perform under the influence of anything. They place too much value on their mental state to allow anything to affect their minds and instincts and reflexes. I definitely do that. He was completely miserable, committed to proving he could control himself. A cleaner doesn't want to give up the thing you disapprove of. To him, that's a weakness. I quite like that. Now, Michael Jordan, his gambling addiction. When I think about all of this now, I recently watched, probably for the 7th time, The Last Dance. And there's a massive component of Michael Jordan's quote-unquote gambling addiction, right? But he always would say, I could stop it tomorrow or whatever. Like, he had control over the situation. It's not an addiction for him, right? Cleaners control it. Would you be as successful if you followed all the rules and always behaved and never took chances? No, you'd probably be like everyone else, turning right or turning left. Well, turning right, everyone else is turning left. Well, turning right is where the success lies. The only pressure he feels is whatever he puts in himself. That's the end of the chapter there. The dark side. Interesting one. interesting perception, everything. Do you know what your dark side is? I'm getting closer to mine. I'm getting closer to mastering mine. When I first read this book, I had no clue. Took a while. But every time that I read it, right, I've had a different answer. So I sculpted myself every single time that I read this. So in the few months between me reading that, I changed a lot. Right? It could have been just my awareness. It could have been the way I acted. I would attribute it mainly to my awareness. But interesting points there, right? My dark side would have developed as I read the book as well, which made it more prevalent, which made my awareness more, hyper aware of what I was doing, which led me to different paths and finding different things. But now I believe that I do know what my dark side is, and I will act by it a little bit more in times, and in times than I have. But I'll leave you with that, and we will see you in the next episode.